Welcome to Money Convos, where we discuss personal finance and investment tips. We are committed to helping people create wealth and achieve financial freedom. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse, and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast. Alright then, let's head into today's conversation.
Today's conversation is on retirement planning. Mimi, are you back?
Yeah. I was saying that my guest today is Emmanuel. He works with me at Access, and he's in charge of the relationship management department. He's somewhere noisy, so I'm sure he will chip in as and when he can.
That's great. I like his role, in charge of relationship management. You know, one of the things that we'll be looking at is hearing about personal stories. So I'm sure he'll have a lot to share on that side. So I'm looking forward to it. So today's conversation, yet another recorded session. All our sessions are recorded. We are having a discussion about retirement planning. Why bother at all? Like it's for some of us. For some of us, it's 32 years away. For someone like Jennifer, it's 104 years away. Yeah. Anyway, David, even for David Crites, it's a few. It's 20.
It's a few
15,
months
20
away.
years.
Say it.
Is it? A few
You know you
months
want to
away.
say it. It's a few months away.
I didn't say it. You said it. You know, so yeah, we are not all David. Why should we worry about it? You know, so this is a good time to have this conversation. So it's nice to have everyone here. And it's not going to be only in the context of Ghana. We have our avid investment enthusiast, David, and who would share some tips for those in the US. So it would also be relevant for you. So it's good to have you here joining on the conversation. I see some regular faces: Danielle, Isaac, Edinam, and a new face, D. Kwejo, joins every now and then. So it's nice to see you, Kwejo Redu. I know Kwejo from school, so it's nice to see his face. Know that, oh, Charlie, people are still alive and looking good in his DP. Jennifer, take notes. Anyway, all right. So let's jump into the conversation, right? Before just first salvos, what are your thoughts when you hear about retirement? What does it get you thinking about? Mimi?
For me, I guess because I'm in the industry, it's something I can connect to. Because every now and then, I do have to work with people who, by the grace of God, are celebrating their 60th birthday and have to take major decisions on how they plan to manage their finances. So for me, I think it's a bit more real than it is for the average person. I mean, I'm in my 30s and I'm even yet to like, um, how do I put it? Feel like I'm in my 30s. And then, I have to think about retirement and put myself in my future self's shoes, feel empathetic for that person, and start putting in place a plan so that the person will be comfortable. So for me, when I think about retirement, it's just that stage in life where I'll have more time, to do what I love to do, to be with the people I love to be with, and not to be thinking about its financial implications. So for me, that sums it up.
Interested. You are still living the baby girl life, eh? But I'm sure your boys remind you that you're not that much of a baby girl every now and then.
All right.
Okay. All right. That's an interesting thought. Jennifer, how about you?
What you said just reminded me of an advert I've seen. So a young man is at his desk drinking something, and he just gets somebody in the room with him, and the person is like an older version of him, telling him things that he wishes he had done when he was younger. And the person so it's a cryptocurrency advert. So the person tells him about the cryptocurrency, and then later. So that is like, on hindsight, something that the person is thinking that he had done when he was younger. And I think retirement is something that the person was thinking about, because cryptocurrency when he came from the future, it was apparently a very booming business, and he wished he had invested in it when he was younger, so he could reap in it in his old age. So I think that's something that is very, very imperative that everybody thinks about. And you make plans, and then you put some money down so that you can get it when you want to retire. David is in his 40s, but he says it's the retirement is in a few years' time or a few months' time, which means that when he was in his heydays and while he was sowing his wild oats, he was also putting some money aside, such that in 20 years' time or in 30 years' time, he can comfortably retire. So yeah, I think that's a good conversation we are having. Thank you.
Yeah, a few more months for David. The, you said something that reminded me of when I was in high school, even JSS. Teachers used to say, "Had I known," they always try to scare us into following their advice by saying, had I known," So yeah,
It's
it's
always at last.
yeah, and I don't know if it worked for other people, but for me, I guess I didn't have to worry about those things. I think I started out pretty too serious, so I sided with them on a lot of these things. But it's a good time for us as young people to be having these conversations while we still have time. And during that conversation, we will see how time is our best friend when it comes to retirement planning. So yeah, David, how about you? Any opening thoughts?
On retirement,
Yes, yes. What do you think about what comes to mind when you hear about retirement?
for me, one of the things I think about is, being able to live anything, a life comparable to what I'm living now in retirement. And as much as I do towards that, I kind of have this feeling of, is it enough? Is it enough? Is it enough? It's like nothing is ever enough for me. And because of that, I tend to, as you all know, live a little bit too frugal sometimes. And I have to remind myself to live in the moment, which I do. But it's always, am I doing enough? And being in the industry like all the other panels, right? I've seen people make so much money when they're able to work, and then when they retire and the money just it falls off. Seeing people struggle, it's for me, it's a constant reminder that, listen, this life that we're living now, that we're physically able to work, it's not going to be there forever. So when you're planning, plan well so that in your retirement ages, the fall off isn't so drastic. You know, everybody, well, people sometimes act like, why put all this money away? Why, save all this? You don't know how long you're going to live. Yeah, but you have car insurance. You're a good driver, you have car insurance. You don't know if you're ever going to get into a car accident, but yet you still buy car insurance. So it's one of those things, in case something happens, in case God blesses you and you live to be 100, do you have enough resources to take care of you? So yeah, for me, it's always at the back of my mind. And, that's why I make certain moves based on that nagging thought of, oh, am I ever going to have enough in life? So that's me. Thank you.
That's an again thought. Will you ever have enough? That's a good analogy with a car, with a example of car auto insurance. Even though we are good drivers, we take on insurance, more insurance, like comprehensive, beyond what the law just requires. The bare minimum. You are a good driver. And I tell people this when they sit in my car and I ask them to wear their seatbelts. I'm like, I trust my driving, but I don't trust the next person. We could be driving smoothly and someone will just come and smash into us. So let's take precautions, right? So yeah. Okay. So now to our special guest, Emmanuel Intre, head of relationship management. I think I got that right. Yeah, head of relationship management with Axis Pension Fund. Welcome to Money Convos. Would like you to give us an introduction if you are in a good position. Maybe mention that your background may be a bit noisy. So are you in a position to talk?
Hi, Alec. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, thank you very much, and apologies. I'm actually babysitting my two boys, so they are not allowing me to fully participate. But once in a while, I'll steal some time and ensure that I contribute accordingly. So, just as you mentioned, I'm Emmanuel Intre. I'm with Access Pension Trust. Now, when we mention retirement, what comes to mind basically is that it's an inevitable stage in every individual's life, So, irrespective of who you are, a time will come when, even if you have the energy to work, and if you're in formal employment, the law says that compulsorily at 60 years you should proceed on retirement. So, that's the time when the allowances you used to enjoy will not come. The monthly salary you receive, that alert that you receive every month will not come. And it's also a stage whereby you have to enjoy what people will call the fruits of your labor. And the labor here is during your working life, the time you spend, the waking up early, being in the traffic, your energy and all that. Retirement is that stage where you have to enjoy the fruit from all those toils. But it's interesting to note that, especially the young ones, okay, we think that retirement it's far off. You have 30 years, 35 years. So we basically do not even think about it. More especially because there are other pressing needs on a meager income. Okay, so when you have 3 years to retirement, then you see the anxiety and they ask you what can I do to catch up. So retirement is a stage which everybody will get to. So you should have to understand that it is an inevitable stage. I think that would be my initial comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Retirement is inevitable. There will come that time when you'll be required to enjoy the fruit of your labor, take a break and just relax and enjoy. So yes, it's good we are having this conversation so that we can prepare for that. So the topic goes retirement planning. Why bother? So what is retirement planning? What does it entail? And then yeah, we've realized that it's good to think about retirement ahead of time. So in planning, what does it entail? What should people be looking out for? What should they be doing? So yeah, Mimi, would you like to kick us off with this one?
Okay. Um, so retirement basically is looking at your projecting into the future, looking at the kind of life you want to have in the future, and taking steps now to be able to achieve whatever that life is. So, normally, when we are talking about retirement planning, it encompasses different aspects of our lives. But most of the time, the focus is on finance, which would be our main focus today. But even health wise, you can plan towards your retirement by eating well so that when you get to that point in your life, certain diseases and all that you don't need to struggle with spiritually, socially, they are all part of retirement planning. But most of the time, the main focus is on finances. That is being able to set a goal. Most of the time, it could be an retirement income goal or retirement expense goal that every month, maybe I want to be able to maintain the standard of living. And it will take me about 10,000 to maintain it. Okay, how do I save and invest so that I can be able to afford that kind of lifestyle when I go on retirement? And that is how it all starts. Yeah.
Okay, so that's planning for the life that you want, taking those steps. Then and the non-financial part, eating good food. Yeah, Jennifer is definitely noting that down. Jennifer, have you already started those steps?
Nowadays, I'm trying to do the eating good food that is healthy as well. So that's also very important. Health,
All right.
so that
Yeah,
we live long.
You want to look like Gabriel Union when you are retired, right?
And the spirit.
Okay, yeah. Have Warren Buffett's money and Gabriel Union fees. That'd be nice.
Yeah, yeah. And then
Okay.
I'm working on the Nicki Minaj body. So yeah, we are praying for that too.
Okay. All right. Now that's an interesting twist or curveball. Okay. All right. So yeah, back to the more financial parts of the retirement planning. David, would you like to add on to what Mimi started with, and especially remembering your context of being outside of Ghana?
Wait, hold on 1 second, please. Sorry, I'm doing two meetings at a time, so I was a bit distracted. What's
Oh,
the question again?
you're a big man. We understand. It's really an honor to have you here amongst us.
Oh,
But
Jaisa,
yeah,
Jaisa.
so so we're talking about retirement planning, the steps that what is retirement planning? What does it entail? So yeah, that's what we are looking at.
For me, retirement planning involves, setting up, a little bit of your income while you're working in your working ages. Putting something aside, hopefully, so that by the time you are fully retired, there's a little bit of money to draw on. I know in Ghana you guys have the tier one, tier two. I don't really understand them too much, but I'm assuming it compares to the 401k systems that we have here in the U.S. I know we also have Social Security. I don't know the Ghana version of that, but you know, when you draw on Social Security, right? Depending on when you start drawing, the amount of money will be lower if you start receiving it earlier. So people try to defer that as much as they can to, I think, almost approaching 70, and then that's when it's at the highest. Okay, so if you have a 401k, that could probably sustain you from the time you retire to the time you draw on those Social Security. And if you have enough in the Social Security, that money should be able to, take care of you in your retirement ages, assuming you're not trying to live, the high life that you're living while you're making the money. How you do that in terms of the putting the money away and what you put it into so that it doesn't all, lose value. There's so many different ways. Everyone has what, makes sense to them. I'm hearing real estate and other people are doing investing and, all kinds of stuff. So, you know, to me, it's not a one size fits all. So however you choose to do it, that makes sense for you. Good. For me, because of, all the family and, friends and whatnot who are constantly hitting me up from home and all over the place, I choose to have it drawn from source. So directly before I get paid, the money is already taken out and it's in the plan that I have, so that whatever hits my paycheck, after paying my bills, if there's something left and my boys in Ghana or my boys wherever hit me up, I can say, hey, the money is gone, there's nothing left, or I can give them some if I have it. Because if everything is coming into your account, me personally, there's too much there that if somebody hits me up, I might end up giving them, not thinking, say, oh, I haven't put the part I'm supposed to put away, I haven't done it yet. So that's why taking it out from the source and it helps, works for me. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's what I do. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for sharing those perspectives. I think you are learning more and more about the Ghanaian pension system, because the last time we had a conversation, you were totally clueless about tier one and tier two. So
Yes,
it's
I am learning. I am
yeah.
learning. Thanks to Mimi and Jennifer and you guys, Elikim. I'm hearing this. I had no idea what tier one and tier. I had never even heard of it. But gradually, I'm starting to understand it. And depending on the context in which we talk about it, I can compare it to whatever it is that we have here, and then the names. So yeah, I'm learning. Thank you.
That's great. It's good to know. It's good to know you are learning. That's great. Okay, Emmanuel, how about you? What anything to add on what is retirement planning? Very soon I'll ask about why it's important. So yeah, but what is it?
Okay. Thank you very much. So just to add to what my other speakers have already said, retirement planning basically it's first of all you have to have a goal. Okay, so and it's important to have a mental picture of the goal. So if it's to travel around the world, if it's to do things that you initially wanted to do, but because of your work and time and all that, you couldn't do it. Having that mental picture of the goal makes it easier for you to achieve it. So it first begins with having a goal. Now the goal is basically like a destination. Okay, so if you want to reach a particular destination, you have to analyze the means that you will use. An example is if I want to leave Accra and go to Kumasi, okay, I don't expect to plan to walk from Accra to Kumasi or even to use a bicycle. Okay, so I can either use an airplane, I can either use a vehicle. Okay, so which means that whatever goal you want to achieve, okay, whilst in retirement, you need to understand the actions or the means by which you can achieve those goals. So some of the actions can be you have to review your budget, basically your needs and your wants. Okay, you have to review your assets and your liabilities. So retirement plan is basically the goal you want to achieve and the various actions things, habits you have to let go, new behaviors you have to learn. You have to relearn and unlearn to be able to ensure that you manage your finances well to achieve those particular goals. Yeah, thank you.
That's great. I especially like the part about unlearning some things and then relearning others. Uh, we're at Money Convos, we have personal finance coaching, and just this week we were talking to some. I think it was a couple. That was just yesterday, and we were talking about how okay, don't worry about me. I'm doing a lot of fancy things in Excel, and you are getting scared, and it looks a lot worrisome. But it's really about having having the time to sit down and go through that thinking process to help you realize what is at stake. And when they laid down their financial goals and we looked at their resources, the budget, and how much it would take to reach there, it would some of the goals would be so lofty that we had to pause them. And the analogy you gave is just apt. Where if you want to move from Accra to Kumasi, you're not going to use a bicycle. No, you need something with more power. So a plane or a car. So yeah, that's a very good analogy. I enjoy that. So moving on then, we've seen that we have to start thinking about retirement early. It's a good thing to think about while you have a lot of time ahead of you, so that you can do it comfortably. Um, we've seen what exactly retirement planning is, and so let's delve into the nitty gritty, step by step. What should be the first step of retirement planning? In fact, I would even say the second step, because I think Emmanuel mentioned the first step, have a goal. So delving a little more into the first step of having a goal, can someone give me an example of what a retirement goal is? Jennifer, would you like to jump at that and we'll follow with Mimi?
Okay, so a retirement goal may be to have let's say an annuity of money for a fixed period of time. So let's say I want to be getting, let's say, 5,000 CDs every month for 25 years or 15 years, because I think I'll probably die around 75 or 80. Yes.
That is a very smart goal, very specific. It's measurable. So when the 5,000 CDs is hitting your account, you know it. When it's not, you know it, and it's time bound, right? For 15 years. So I think that's a very good example of a goal. Having an idea of okay, I need 5,000 CDs to live on when I retire, and I should be getting that every month for the next 15 years. I have some clients who retired recently, and I talk about how their portfolio should last another 20, 30 years. They're like, my friend, we won't be here by then. Yo, be a little optimistic, right? So your parents died in their 90s and late 80s. So, but anyway, so yeah, that's on the side. Mimi, how about you? Examples of specific goals?
Yeah. So for me, drawing a retirement, let's say you draw your retirement budget, or you look at your budgets now, and then you take out you add retirement related expenses. So, for example, if your company is taking care of your health care, and you are not fortunate to work with some of these companies that cater for your health care when you're in retirement, you have to add that cost to your budget. If and then take out non retirement related costs like maybe buying office clothes and all those things. So once you have your retirement budget, or once you have your ideal retirement budget taken into consideration, all the vacations and all the nice things that you want to do, then that becomes your desired retirement expense. So if this would cost you 10,000 a month, that becomes your retirement goal. How do I get 10,000 a month? As Jennifer said, for the next 10 years, 20 years. But even a better retirement plan will be till you die, to take care of, the longevity risk, because nobody knows when you're going. And so, yeah, and then also, to because of inflation, you can also capture the fact that you probably want that income to be increased by 10% or 5% or whatever it is a year. So for me, that is an example of a retirement goal.
Having that part about increments every year, it's something that we don't often talk about inflation affecting our expenses, but I have an interesting calculation for later, which I'll bring up. David, how about you? Do you have any specific retirement goals?
Me personally, mine is to have anywhere between 60 to 80% of my current income to live on in my retirement age, and based on conventional wisdom, right? The average life expectancy is anywhere from 80 to 90. I'm projecting more like maybe 100. So if I'm going to live to 100, right, and I'm retiring at, I don't know, 60, 65, thereabouts, between my, speaking in Ghana terms, my tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and all of that combined, being able to get somewhere around 70, 80% of my current income now to live on for those period of time, because most of my expenses ideally would go away. I wouldn't have any mortgage. I wouldn't have school fees and all that, because hopefully my kids will all be out of college. And if I'm lucky enough and I did my job well, maybe my kids will throw me a little, penny here and there, and that will also add to the income. And then boom, I am living the life in my retirement ages. Thank you.
Okay, you are using you have a small portion allocated towards your children supporting you. Meanwhile, some other people have that's the plan for some people. So it's good to know that you don't intend to burden your kids too much.
Master, that is not a guarantee. If they decide to do it, fine, I'll take it. But if they don't, I'm planning that they won't. Because, listen, even talking to my people in my age group, not everyone, I don't want to say cares about their parents, but not everyone is taking care of or prioritizing taking care of their parents the way I feel like one should. But then in the same way, I don't think if you're a parent, you have to expect your kids to take care of you. Why didn't you make sound financial moves while you were working? It's not their fault that you were YOLOing every day till you retired. So don't expect it. However, if it comes, yay. So that's my goal. Thank you.
That's what's up. That's what's up. If don't expect it if it comes, yay. Okay, all right. So that's the first step, getting a having a retirement goal. Mimi, a second step for us.
So the one important step is to know where you are on that journey. And so for example, um if I should put um my figures in a retirement calculator. Okay. My tier two balance, my tier three balance, my income growth rates, and all that. I could be able to tell that, if I continue the way I am going, I'll be able to achieve whatever goal it is that I set for myself, or I'm far away from achieving that goal. And it all comes from assessing your current financial situation. So in there, you can look at your what do you call it, your budget, your income and your expenses coming in. You can also look at your statement, your what do you call it, net worth, or let me say balance sheet. So in your balance sheet, that will show your tier two and your tier three statements. So unfortunately, because SNIT is an insurance, it's not really captured in the balance sheet. However, when we are doing retirement planning, we'll consider how long you've contributed to SNIT according to the SNIT statement. And then with SNIT, once you have how long you're likely to contribute to them for, and how much your income is likely to look like, we are able to determine how much you will take. So we can do some projections and be able to determine that, okay, you may achieve this or you may not. Once we know that there's a gap between what you want to achieve and where you are, we are able to tell, okay, you need to put in this more effort, or you are doing a great job already, but you need to be committed and be consistent with whatever you are doing right now. So, we'll need to assess your current financial situation. And for retirement planning, one way of going about it is looking at your SNIT, looking at your tier two, looking at your tier three. Of course, if you have other businesses and other income generating assets, all those things can help improve your retirement prospects. So those are other things we can also look at to be able to determine whether you'll be able to achieve this goal or you're just dreaming. Thanks.
Wow, that was quite a shot. As Daniel will say, those were some shots you shot there. Whether it's realistic or you are just dreaming, that's an interesting one. But yes, knowing where you stand gives you a reality check, lets you know whether you are on the right path or not. And maybe let me speak as a lay person a bit, right? But some of the things that you said could easily go over someone's head, right? So it may sound like, for someone who is not related to finance, it may sound like, oh, this is a lot of work. I can't do it. You know what? Forget it. Retirement will take care of itself. Are these things that people can do on their own, or they would need a finance professional to assist them? And if they can do it on their own, what are some of the simplest things that they can do to make this easy and doable, like right after this conversation?
So, unfortunately, most of them have been designed for, the foreign market. But with my company, we have a pension planner. So if you go onto our website, you can look for the pension planner and try it out. Once you have your SNIT statement, you have your tier two statement, you have your tier three statement, you know what your basic salary is. You would have to project your salary growth rate. So you can just look at the percentage of your salary increment over the years and just use that same percentage, as well as other what do they call it, variables. You're able to determine, how it's likely to look like, and then it gives you a course of action. It tells you that, brother Charlie, where it's going is not good. You need to be doing maybe 100 cities, or you're in a good place, it's able to tell you that. So that's one of the calculators I know is available for the Ghanaian market. Otherwise, you can use other calculators. Just that you wouldn't be able to input your tier 2, tier 3. It won't take into consideration your SNIT. So maybe you are looking at, sorry, it won't take into consideration your SNIT, but you can use your tier 2 and tier 3 balance as a, how do I make it this as simple as possible? As a lump sum investment, right? But it won't take into consideration your SNIT. And you see, for most of us, we rely on SNIT to provide a portion of our retirement benefit. So it will be good if we have a calculator that captures all of it. So you can go onto the Access Pension Trust website. We have a pension planner. You can try it out. If you think you need any assistance, just call me. I'll help you. But it's not anything complicated.
Yeah, I just Googled Access Pension Planner and I see it there. I'm impressed by it. It looks simple for starters. It's just a slide that change your age, and David will just keep sliding this thing all the way. Okay, it goes up to 85. So okay, David won't go all the way. But yeah, so it looks quite clean, simple and clean. So I'd encourage everyone, if it sounds like retirement planning is a daunting task, this is a tool that is here to help you. Mimi mentioned other ways of calculating. Like if you look at what you currently have in your tier 2, for example, as a lump sum payment in future, then you can do a future value calculation. But again, we are trying to avoid the big English. But Data Bank also has a calculator. I think a lot of the asset management companies have these calculators because they come up in conversations. So if you have investments anywhere and you know that they also have a pensions wing, you can just ask them if they have a simple way of doing these calculators, or you can also Google the future value calculator. Some get complicated, like Mimi said, they are not for they don't seem friendly to our markets, not as simple. So I would strongly recommend the Axis Pension Planner. We usually don't like to do plugs, but Charlie, this one, it looks like everything is just game set match. Boncheng. Thank you, Mimi, for drawing our attention to that. I'm sure right after this conversation, some people will just jump in there with their data. Jennifer, jump on to this topic.
I want to give an example. So on Sunday, I was talking to somebody, and I told him that it's possible for you to plan. He's in the health sector, so those people, they hardly think about retirement and those things. Yes, so he was so surprised that, hey, it's possible for you to say that you want an amount of money by the time you're at this age. Yeah, so we went on the calculator to do some small calculations, and you can even do 10 Ghana cedis and just invest 10 CDs. Like I'm giving a scenario that you can put in an investment calculator, that if you are doing 10 CDs every month for, let's say, 30 years or 20 years, what are you going to get? And I think everybody should play with the figure so that you know that you don't need anything extraordinary. You can even do 20 CDs, 50 CDs a month, and then see that if you are doing that for this number of years, what are you going to get? And then you see that it is very feasible for you to do it, and then hopefully you implement it. And as Imi was and Elikem said, it's not difficult at all. Like, you don't, most of the time the investment calculators are self-explanatory. So they put the parts that you need to put figures there as in layman's terms, so that you'll be able to understand it and then plug in your figures. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that real life example. It's the numbers really shock people, right? So while we are on this topic, this is something that we in finance like to show. I'm a numbers guy. I like numbers. They tell stories very simply for me, and they make it things more vivid. I'll just give you a scenario. Let's say, take someone like Douglas in our audience. Douglas, are you 19 or 20? I'm just kidding. Let's say around 25. Let's say 25. You are done with university. You are starting your job. Ideally, that should be around 23, 24, but let's just round it up to 25. If you are going by Ghana's statutory age of 60, then that means you have 35 years to retire. And let's say you have a target amount of 1 million cedis, right? We'll talk about the 1 million in a bit, but let's say you have a certain target amount, regardless what it is. I want to look at time. I want us to focus on the time it will take and the cost of procrastination. So let's just use 1 million as an example. As Jennifer said, small amounts can get you where you want to be. So at a conservative rate of 15% per annum, if you have 35 years till retirement, just putting aside 88 CD 63 pesos. So you just round it to just 89 CDs a month can get you to that 1 million. And that would help you towards your retirement. Someone would easily say, "Oh, but that's just some small. If I go out, I buy some 1 or 2 chichinga from Kempinski. That's just to just go away, you know. Not Abochi's chichinga, the Kempinski one, or just a simple. You use it for airtime or something. It just seems like pocket change for some people. Just 89 CDs a month can get them to a comfortable retirement, you know. So now let's look at the next stage. Let's say Douglas did this as when he had 35 years to go, and someone else. Let's see. Let me pick on Eddie Nam, not Daniel. Let me pick on Eddie Nam. Eddie Nam was a Douglas mate, but he decided to wait because, you know, Charlie, retirement is just so far away. But as it always happens, when people reach their 30s, they start thinking more seriously about life. Hashtag, just remember we have the last month series on various life stages. So you can check out our podcast and our YouTube. Anyway, so Eddie Nam is thinking, I mean, I'm getting to 30. I need to get my stuff together. Okay, retirement. This last time they were Elikem and Mimi and Jennifer were talking plenty about retirement. Okay, let me start putting some money aside. Whereas Douglas started and he just needed 89 CDs a month to reach 1 million. If Edinam has the same target of 1 million when he retires, because he has waited 5 years, he has to do more than double. He has to deposit 180 CDs every month to catch up to that same 1 million goal at age 60. And we are saying they are the same age. So we delaying 5 years multiplied what the person needed to bring in by 2. In fact, more than 2. So that tells you that time is your best friend. But it gets worse. Another mate of theirs, now this time Danielle. Now Danielle has what thing, you know, they hear word. She waited till she was 35, and now, okay. Life is really getting serious right now. Thinking about family and all that. She wants to do retirement savings. Now she has just 25 years to go. This time, instead of hers is even worse than Edinam's, where Edinam needed to do 180 CDs a month to get to the same 1 million. She has to do 367 CDs a month. So you see that every 5 years is about doubling. Every 5 years, assuming they all get to invest at the same interest rates, is doubling. And interest rates, if we are comparing over time, interest rates is irrelevant because we are assuming they can do similar investments. You wait 5 years, and what you need to put in only increases. That's how daunting it is. Clubhouse is audio. If I had done it, if I could have put up a graph for you to see the difference, then you would have realized that it's a lot. So just 5 years, and it will cost you much for the retirements that you want. Mimi, any reactions to this?
It's interesting, this analogy. I was reading a book, Rules of, I think, Wealth or something like that. And the book was saying that was speaking against this thing that we've been talking about a lot, and was saying the reason being that if maybe the person gets to a certain stage, okay, where he can contribute maybe 500 the person will pass the person who was doing the 80 whatever. But the reality is that we always think that things will get better, and so we don't take action. But in most cases, even when they get better, so does our responsibilities, and we never get to catch up. So it's very interesting that if you should start something very early, you are able to do so much by the time you retire. And it reminds me of some people that were working with some organization. The organization was doing a provident fund before this whole tier 2, tier 3 thing came out about. And I think they were pushed by another organization. But unlike what regular employees do, they withdraw and then go to another organization and start again. These people decided to um, transfer their funds and then continue from there. That batch of people, they all retired as millionaires. And they look very simple. When you see them walking around, they look very simple, but they have money. So it's just interesting how doing something for a long time can really make a huge difference in your life.
Yes, doing something over a long period of time can make a world of difference. And it's nice to see that these people are like the millionaires next door. Jennifer, you remember the book?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I like the way Mimi made the correlation that they don't look it. Because that's also another tenet we got from the book. Yeah. But as an
yeah.
aside, I like the way Mimi says millionaire. Like she make sure that the ear is there so that you feel the power behind the name.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, someone became a millionaire by saving 89 CDs. So, Charlie, Douglas, Daniel, Eddie now, young people out there, Charlie, the ball is in your court, right? David, speaking of time being your friend, you are a bit older than us, so you have seen this time difference play out. So you have probably seen people, and especially comparing yourself to other people, where you've benefited from starting early. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, for me, even when I talk to people who are straight out of college and getting their first jobs, I tell them, I had somebody text me like a month ago asking me, oh, they are saying something about this 401k. Should I do it? And I texted them back in all caps, yes, yes, please do. Because, okay, let me speak to my US folks for a quick second, right? The laws are set up to help you, right? You start early. If you're making X amount of whatever it is you're making, and you're doing this 401k, the IRS itself has said, say, you can put up to, I think it's like 19 whatever thousand a year. You put that in there every year, right? At that young age, how much are your expenses, right? One thing to Mimi's point about people who want to wait and then do more later on, one thing we don't realize that the more money you make, your luxuries now become necessities. Your luxuries become necessities. When you were making, 2,000 Ghana a month, you were seeing somebody who was driving a Lamborghini like, oh my God, when would I ever drive this? Now that you're making $10,000, a month in your, as a salary, now, the Lamborghini becomes, oh, I need to have one maybe for every day of the week. You see, so there are always going to be things coming up that's gonna, hurdles coming up in your path that's gonna prevent you from doing these things. Okay, you put all this money aside. Let's say you're buying a house. For your first house, you got married, you can take some money from there, use it to buy a house. If you're in your younger years and you're making all these crazy money, right over here, the taxes are ridiculous. If you put what the IRS is allowing you to put into any retirement account that you put in, it's reducing your tax liability. You're paying less taxes, and guess what? All the money that you're saving is back into your pocket for when you get to 60 and you are too weak to go out there and work. Then you can use it. So for me, this is when it comes to retirement, it's a topic that I cannot talk enough about. Like I'm sure people are tired of hearing me talk about it because I have seen it for real, having been in the financial service industry and drawing up retirement plans for customers, for clients, and seeing how it's worked. And for those that didn't listen, seeing how it went against them. It's ridiculous. It's like night and day. So people, please, even if you're 18 and you're doing, I don't know, you're fresh out of college or wherever, fresh out of high school, and you're doing a job, if they offer you a retirement plan, please participate. Not only that, most companies, I don't know how the system in Ghana works, but most companies, they'll match it for you. So they'll say if you put in $1, we'll add you $1 for every dollar you put in, maybe up to the first 10% of your salary. If you do that alone, every dollar you put in right off the bat, you've made 100% returns. You can't get that anywhere, and it's legal, okay? So please, when it comes to retirement, I feel like Ghanaians, Africans, we don't talk about it enough. Let's talk about it more. Let's make it a thing so our young ones can do these things. Okay, I'm going off a tangent, so I'll stop here. Thank you.
Was getting into the fields. I like this example that how you did the math. That if your employer is matching it, that is 100% return right there, and that's just mind blowing. My company offers that. And speaking of my company, I would like to invite up Niam Pasua to speak. He was on the show on our room a few weeks ago, speaking on life in the 40s. So he would join in on this conversation. He's an expert in the field as the head of data bank assets management, which has quite a large pensions wing. But before Nii comes in, just a few more, uh, following up from what David said, it's like the system has been set up for you, especially for those of us in Ghana who feel like we are not getting a good, big enough chunk of the national cake. You don't see what the country is doing for you. Politicians are robbing you in broad daylight. You feel frustrated. Look, the law is here to dash you money. Instead of paying taxes on a certain portion of your income, up to Mimi, please correct me if I'm wrong, up to 36%, right?
So the 18.5 from the tier 2 and tier 1 are mandatory. So let's put that one aside.
Yeah.
The voluntary one is 16.5, up to
Mhm.
16.5. Yeah,
Okay. So that makes 34.5%, right?
35%.
35%. Okay, great. So up to 35% of your income is tax goes tax free. And I even hesitate to say let's put that aside because even though it's mandatory, there are a lot of people who don't pay SNIT for their employees. So if you are an employee and you just get a certain amount of money, you don't know if it's going into SNIT or not, you are being robbed of that benefit you get from the government. So ensure that your SNIT tier 1 is taken care of. So let's not take that for granted. Ensure that tier 2 is also taken care of. Let's not take it for granted, and then the rest is some extra that you can put in there, and the government is pretty much dashing you money, right? But going back to the calculations that I did to show you that time is your best friend, just a word of caution is if you start with 88 cities, you are fresh out of university and or whatever amount you are starting off with, God willing, 2 years down the line, 3 years, 5 years down the line, your income should be growing by a bit. If inflation would always happen, cost of goods and services will always go up. So you need to protect yourself. Do that by increasing how much you contribute every year or every other year. That will go a long way to kind of insulate you from a certain level of inflation. And so, yeah, that's something you should just keep in mind. Inflation is can erode your money, so keep increasing your deposits as you go. Okay, enough from me. Let's hear from Pani. Pani, welcome on stage, and it's nice to have you joining on this conversation on retirement planning.
Hi, Elikem, and thank you for inviting me upstairs so that I can come and talk small. I've been in and out, so I'm not sure if this point has been made. Um, but there are just, I mean, two or three things that come to mind. If it's not exactly two or three, please forgive me. My ideas are all over the place. I've heard a lot of references to um, inflation. My concern is not just about inflation, but also about depreciation. As you know, in the parts of the world that we in particular live in, a lot of things are imported. So while yes, you do have inflation to contend with, for those large capex type items like a car or even a house or inputs that concern building of a house, most of them are imported. So your purchasing power ideally should be at a level where you'll be able to manage that. So that, for instance, keeps me up at night um, a lot. And a lot of the retirement calculators that you have in our parts of the world, I don't think they properly take into consideration inflation and currency and depreciation. So whatever you work um, with in terms of um, trying to estimate your retirement amount, you are likely to have to amplify it by a certain factor, and for you to be really comfortable. If not, you could run out of road. You could literally run out of road in the middle of your planning journey. And from an experience perspective, I'm still drawing on this thing with inflation and depreciation. It it helps if, let's say, part of your retirement goal involves acquiring some of those large ticker items earlier on in life. So what am I talking about? So, for instance, a house. If it's possible for you to um, make some headway in acquiring the home you would likely be living in, then that obviously would be a good thing to do. Because if you say you're going to wait till later, from a dollar value perspective, the value is not likely to change. But if you're a city earner, you are likely to it's likely to cost you if you don't plan well. I think those are the immediate things that come to mind in terms of sharing.
That's great, Fanny. Thank you for sharing that. Other things to consider and the large items especially. And I'm sure Mimi will share some experiences about people and their home purchasing or home building plans and experiences later in the conversation. Thank you again, Fanny. Okay, so let's take another angle to this, or unless there are other steps. So we've mentioned a few steps, just a recap, and we've talked about having a retirement goal, and we've said that you should also have a good look at where you are at right now. Starts with your SNIT benefits. Have a SNIT statement, your tier one, two, three provident fund statements if you have those, and a good place to get help with these calculators is the Axis Pension Planner. You can Google Axis Pension Planner and it will take you to that part of their website to help you out. Also, you should look at your budget. Consider a retirement budget. You know, you make an adjustment based on your current budget. Take out certain items that those expenses that you may not be incurring when you are on retirement. Perhaps you don't have any pension babies. You finished having your children. You expect to have them out of university by the time you retire. So you don't have to worry too much about school fees, you know, those kind of items, you take it out. And then you add certain retirement expenses, like if your medical expenses are an allowance, are covered as an allowance by your employer when you retire. If your employer doesn't offer this for retirees, then it will be out of your pocket. So you need to factor that into your budget when you are you are considering your retirement needs. So with these in mind, it can help you get that very specific retirement goal. Perhaps you need 5,000 CDs a month for 20 years, or you have a broader goal of you want to make sure that you have sufficient money, income every until you die. You know, so all these are steps that you should take. Other steps that have been mentioned is that you should be mindful of starting early. I guess that's the most important step, right? Put in the money, make the contribution. That's a very important step that should not be missed. We could talk a lot, but the money needs to start moving to the right places, and then especially um, the pre-tax places like SNIT tier one, tier two, tier three. Okay, so Mimi, are there any other steps that we are missing?
Yeah, so now that you have an idea of what your situation is like, it's time to take action. And for some of us, that may mean reporting your employer. Maybe he's not paying your SNIT, or your tier two. For some of us, that may be having to take on a personal pension plan. For some of us, maybe doing other investments elsewhere. For some of us, it may even have to do with increasing our income. By knowing our current situation, we know what we need to do to be able to bridge the gap between where we are to where we want to be. So when it comes to the course of action, I think it's very dependent on the person's individual situation. But the yes, where we determine what you should do next to be able to achieve whatever goals we have set. Yeah.
That's great. Take action. Speaking of the actions, next week we will be helping you take action. So I mentioned this month is for retirement planning. So today we are talking about why bother talking about retirement. Sounds for most of us, it sounds so far away. Why bother? So next once now that we realize that it's really important, we need to start taking actions, right? So next week we will be having a conversation with someone from SNIT, and we'll be talking about the tier one, that is SNIT, your contributions to SNIT, and what all that entails, what you need to do to take the necessary action. So please do join again next week, Thursday, 7 p.m., the usual time here on Clubhouse in our regularly recorded sessions. And if you know anyone who is missing these sessions, let them know that they can get these recordings on YouTube and on our podcast. Just search for Money Convos in anywhere you listen to podcasts. Then we would follow the next week, that's 21st, with tier two and three. Now, these are the ones that are managed by private institutions. So we'll be having those conversations, and we will crown the month with any challenges to expect in while doing your retirement planning. Okay, so yes, back to the matter. Mimi has talked about taking actions. Are there any other points, any other steps that should be taken in the retirement planning process, Jenny?
The reason why you really need to, like, especially take action when you've sort of all the things that you need to, let's say the planning and all of that, is because somebody didn't do this and a person is collecting 300, and so it was 300 cedis in 2019, Ghana cedis as pension stipend every month. And it is possible for you to, let's say, if you don't plan and you just leave things to your employer and just be sitting there, it's possible that you will get to 60 and you have the shock of your life when your lump sum comes, and then your monthly payments come. So that is why you need to make sure that you are planning and then checking your statements and making sure all your eggs are aligned and your ducks are in one row, so that you don't have any unpleasant surprises when the time comes.
Whew. That's quite a tough one. The shock of your life. I think Mimi has mentioned in a previous room, some of the times when people got a shock when they retired. Mimi, did you have you shared any such examples before?
Hello, Elikim. Yes, sorry. So, today I was actually talking to a young man. We're actually talking about, black task, or the kind of assistance he needs to give his family members. We're talking about his income and why it's not enough. And he told me that his mom's pension is like, I think 300 Ghana or something like that. And I mean, and she was a teacher. I think for teachers, sometimes we don't expect much of them, but sometimes for people who were working, driving nice cars and the rest, we expect, that they would have a good enough amount. And Smith gave an example of in a presentation I was in of two people, both were earning I think 7,000, but one salary I think was either consolidated or the basic salary was way more than the what do you call it, the allowance. And then the other person, was more interested in his net income. So the basic salary was as small as it could be with more allowances. So when they went on retirement, one was expecting that you will get the same benefits as the other, just to find out that his basic salary was 3,000, even though he was earning 7,000. So if there's any calculation that is going to be done, it's going to be based on his basic salary. So you can imagine that there are two of us, we're all taking 7K, but maybe I'll be earning maybe 4, because of the way my income was structured, and you'll be earning like 1,000 something. And all these things are things that if we know ahead of time, when we are even negotiating our salaries, making major decisions, we can make sure that we are taking it in the best interest of ourselves now and in the future.
Yeah, Charlie, it's at that point where you say that, oh yeah, we lived similar lives before we retired, but now this is where some people say you separate the sheep from the goat. And for some of these people, it's not it's not out of their own fault. They didn't know better. Some of these things can be quite technical, but I'm really happy that SNET is taking a lot of efforts to do PR. They have a receptive PR team, and next week we'll have someone coming from SNET, young people who are also relatable. So at least these days there's a lot more information out there. So you have very little room to be left out. So that hopefully as we keep growing the Money Convos community, we keep saying that in 5 years we want to make sure that we are way better than where we were when we started this out. So that when we retire, and of course David will be starting before us, of course. But yes, when we eventually retire, we will all be in that good position where we know that we took all the necessary steps in retirement planning. We maxed out all the tax advantages. We got that piece of the national cake, and we'll be living comfortable lives. Some people will be looking like Gabriel Union, hashtag Jennifer. Some of us will be looking like George Clooney, myself. So yeah, looking forward to that. Okay, all right. So with now that a lot of the technical part is out of the way, right? And David, I haven't heard your voice for a while, so let me throw this question at David. Can someone retire before the formal age? I think in the US is it 65? So maybe you can speak in the US context, and then we'll also hear someone else speak on the Ghanaian context. Can anyone retire before 65 or the formal retirement age?
Yes, you can. You can retire whenever you want, but to draw from your Social Security, that one. So the earlier you draw, I think the Social Security draw, the earlier you draw, the lower it is. So if you can push it as far back as you can, you get higher. Then again, too, it's based on what you put in. So every year as your income goes up, you get a statement from the Social Security people that says that based on your income, if you retire at XYZ date, this is how much you will be getting a month, after retirement. So if you're not paying enough into it, meaning if you retire early, then the amount of money that you have to be drawing from also goes down. I don't know exactly what it is based on the age. I don't think it's based on the age. It's based on how much money you put in and how soon you are drawing from it. So retirement day, you can do it whenever, but have you put enough away where, when you retire, you'll be fine? Or are you just retiring because, you just don't want to work? That's the question. But yes, the short answer to your question is you can retire whenever you want to retire. Just that the amount of money you get from the Social Security benefit is going to vary. Thank you.
Yeah. That's a good one. So for all of as who want to retire early. And this is welcome news. There, or what you put in, is it no contribution, no chop, right? So it's all about how much you put
Exactly. Exactly.
in.
I
Man, high
like that
school
term
days.
though. No contribution,
Yeah,
no chop.
yeah. You went to a good high school, so yeah, you'd appreciate that. That's Achimota School, in case anyone was wondering. Anyway,
Motown in the house. What's
you
up?
know, okay, yeah. Mimi, how about you? You are a resident expert for Ghana, so can anyone retire before 60?
I like the way I sound like some consultant and all that. I hope it comes with some dollars. Anyway, yeah, like David said, anyone can retire before 60. Let me deal with the informal one first. I think me mentioned something that is very important, inflation and depreciation, but I'll just focus more on the inflation. Inflation can mess things up, it can mess your plans up. And so when you retire early, let's say you've invested and you retire early and you are drawing down, you may not be, unless you invested so much and you started with low drawdowns, something very insignificant in the beginning, you realize that at a point, even if you are increasing your drawdowns on an annual basis, it's not able to catch up with the inflation rate. Of course, as I said, unless your drawdowns were designed well. So I think that if you want to retire early, apart from financial assets, which provide some good liquidity, by liquidity, I'm saying easy access to cash, you probably may have to look into real assets because they are able to, help with the inflation bit. By real assets, speaking about business, real estate, those kind of things, they can, as prices go up, those things also tend to, adjust, with inflation. So I think those having that as part of your portfolio would really help to deal with inflation. When we talk about formal retirement in Ghana, at age 55, for most employment, you can take an early retirement. But just like David said, if you take an early retirement, you get lower pensions. So, for example, at let's say if I had stayed till 60, I would have earned 5,000. At age 55, I'll earn 60% of that 5,000 cedis, which is 3,000 Ghana cedis. So normally what I tell most people is if you want to retire early, make sure that you start planning for it way ahead of time. Don't wait till you are 50 or 55, realize that actually this banking job crash in Queen, then you want to retire. It reminds me of someone I spoke to. He's really tired. He says it's because of health issues, but when we looked at the numbers, plus he has loans and other liabilities, it will be a mistake for him to retire, honestly. And so these are some of the things that we have to consider. For me, I think early retirement would be nice because honestly, this Charlie working life we want to stop a bit and chill. But it's all possible if we plan ahead of time and having other assets apart from financial assets. What I mean is the usual investment, T-bill, all those other investments that we know about. Having some real assets, I think, also help to deal with the inflation you mentioned, which for me is also a very is one of the major challenges retirees face. Thank you. Oh, let me add that if you work in a military kind of job, mining, those risky stuff, I think the law allows you to retire earlier, 45 if I'm not mistaken. And also, if you are 50 and unfortunately no fault of yours, you are unemployed, you can also file for, your pension benefits. Yeah, and if you are sick and medically incapacitated, you remember we said that the youngest retiree is like 27 years through no fault of yours. You earn pensions as though you were 60 years. So that's just something to consider. Thanks.
Interesting. Charlie, Jennifer, some of my mates are on retirement already.
I know, right? But it's through no fault of theirs. Do you want
Do you know,
something
I
like that?
do not envy the person
Yes,
at all. I do
it's
not
true.
envy the person at all. At all. I can't imagine what the person had to go through to get to that point. But yes, that just, is a foreshadow of the SNIT as insurance. Mimi mentioned that earlier, and we'll delve into more of that next week. So I have another interesting question, right? I have a friend who says that, you know, sometimes when we meet up on a Sunday evening, and or weekday evening, and you say that, oh, some of you even have to go home early. Those of you who have sold your souls for salary, he is an entrepreneur, so he doesn't have to worry about waking up so early. He will go to work when he gets to work. So for those people, what recourse do they have? Do they have to care about retirement planning, or is only for those of us who are employed by other people? What, what's the deal for them?
I think this is something that I'm too passionate about, and maybe because I've seen it close to me. So I don't know why, but a lot of entrepreneurs think that retirement planning is not for them. I think the assumption is that you can work till you drop dead. I mean, hopefully. Um, and that's the ideal situation. If you realize anything about entrepreneurs, and if you've been around entrepreneurs for a while, you realize that when they are doing their what do you call it, their analysis, a lot of them hardly look at plan B, plan C. It's all about if these three buses go to Kumasi every day, blah blah blah. They don't look at how about if it breaks down, how about if this, how about if that. So you find out that the contingency planning is not there, and I think it's that reason. For that reason, why you have a lot of them not planning for their retirement. Some will tell you that, oh, this money I can pump it into my business and make so much. I mean, 100 CDs, 200 CDs. Come on. For me, I always say that a few years ago, I had somebody tell me he's an entrepreneur. He told me that he really wishes he had done SNIT because unfortunately, at a particular point in his life, all his business, and he was even doing different businesses, all of them went down. And even what to eat, what to drink, electricity, like needs, basic needs, was like a struggle. And this was somebody who was like boiling all of a sudden. So for me, for entrepreneurs, because you don't have your employer to be thinking about you, it's something that you have to do. Because if you take anybody in the formal sector, you have people who didn't do anything. Their employer did a provident fund for them, a personal pension, paid their SNIT. Maybe their employer even said that you are not allowed to withdraw from your provident fund. So by force, they had to keep their money in there. And they retire millionaires as a result. They didn't put in any effort. But then you have the entrepreneur and everything is on your head. Unfortunately, you feel like personal finance is not for you. But I believe that because of the risk involved, you you need to do more. Entrepreneurs need to start owning their personal finance and separate the finances of their business from their individual finances. I think it's very important. I don't know if anyone has something to add.
Yeah,
So,
can feel the
um,
passion. All right, David, please go ahead.
yeah, I totally agree with what Mimi is saying. Over here, I know, I personally know, well, this is being recorded, so, well, I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who's an entrepreneur, and they are underreporting the amount of money that they make to the, IRS. And they think, say, it's something to be, to be happy about. But what they don't realize is that as you are underreporting it to the IRS, your social security is going to be based on the amount of money that you're actually reporting and you're paying taxes on. Okay, so for you, because all your money comes to you and you have to make all these decisions, I'm going to pay this to the IRS, I'm going to pay this to this, pay this to that. Most of them are just living off of the cash and, living the high life. And then when the year ends and then they have to file their taxes, they realize, oh my God, look at the amount of money that I owe in taxes. And like Mimi said, if you're doing a regular job, your employer is taking care of your social security for you. They probably have a 401k that you're putting money away for. So a lot of these things are done for you. But if you're an entrepreneur, some of these things, you put off thinking retirement will never come. How many people or how many businesses do we all know that during this pandemic have gone belly up? So many of them. So can you imagine if you're an entrepreneur and one of your businesses or all your businesses in a sector where it was heavily dependent on traffic, people coming in and out, purchasing or whatever it was. And then this pandemic happens and then now everything is gone to zero. And you don't have any better, pension plan. Now what? So, entrepreneurs need to kind of pay attention to these things. Thank you.
Okay. Eddie Kim, I think when I tap my mic, you don't see because it's been a
Oh,
while. Been
oh, so
happening for a
sorry.
while. Yeah, it's fine.
So sorry.
So I think this can go both ways because I also know of an entrepreneur who he had a stable work. He had employed somebody in from his family, and he was paying his SNIT and the person's SNIT, and the business started going through very serious difficulties, and then the SNIT was chasing them for pensions. They were barely breaking even, and they were chasing them for the SNIT. And the man was, because it was, he was very passionate about SNIT because he walked himself into SNIT's office to go and talk to somebody about himself and then his nephew. So he was borrowing money to still pay until finally the business just went bust and everything went back. So I think if you're an entrepreneur, you really need to make sure your business is going concern year after year so that you can keep paying your SNIT and your whoever you've employed SNIT as well, because you will age, and so it's not an excuse that because of the risk you don't think you should do it. You should do it and then make sure that whatever venture that you are in is a going concern so that it will be able to sustain the SNIT payments that you are in, because when they were it was even worse than GRE. Like they were on him almost every month, like pay like that. Yes, because you worked here yourself that you wanted to pay, so pay. Yeah, so I think that is something that everybody needs to think about, and it's not only entrepreneurs, people that are on commission. So those people I hear can get a lot of money because it's a percentage of the, let's say if it is sales, the percentage of the sales you bring. They can apparently get a lot of money, but then they also forget that there's that aging, and then I won't be able to sustain this healthy lifestyle that I have. So I won't be able to keep working in an organization like this. So then when I'm sick or when I'm done working, what's next? So if you are based on commission, please go and find out, because to the best of my knowledge, they don't pay SNIT for commission based workers. So you should go and find out if you are being paid, your SNIT is being paid, and if not, then you look at steps at which you can use to make the payments yourself. Thank you.
Charlie, on that note, the influencers who are getting the sponsorships, all the people, the artists, everyone doing something informal, side gig, or a side gig that's your main gig. You are doing Uber, you are doing anything. As long as you don't have an employer who is ensuring that these things are being done for you, get it done yourself. Do yourself that favor, right? Yeah, Mimi. I guess we'll hold on and we'll get back to maybe when her network is a bit better. But yeah, it's been an interesting conversation, eye-opening. I've heard a few new things, hearing about how your employer matching your contribution into a provident fund or a retirement account is like getting 100% return on your investment. I've heard a few new things, even though I've been in the game for a few years. There's always something new to hear when you're among people sharing ideas on the same topic. We've not heard much from our audience, so at this point, we are about to wrap up. If you have any questions, you can message me or you can raise your hand and ask this question on retirement planning. We are focusing on why bother about retirement planning. Is it important at all? We found out that it's not only for salaried workers, it's also for entrepreneurs, self-employed people. It's important for everyone to plan. And if you don't plan, when you turn 60, you'll get the shock of your life. And if your health is not good at that point, that can evolve into even worse health condition. I heard about a story of someone who just went downhill and eventually drank himself to death after he retired, a few years after he retired. So these are some situations that you want to avoid when you retire. And the best time is to plan now, especially for those of us who are young, have 20, 25, 30 years ahead of us before we retire. And you start well, and hey, you may actually end up being in a good position to retire early, right? So yeah, this month we are talking about retirement. Next week we'll be hearing we'll be talking about SNIT, and we'll have someone from SNIT to join us. And SNIT is the tier one of our pension structure in Ghana. The following week will be on tier 2 and 3, which are managed by private fund managers. So we'll have those conversations also. So do tune in next week. So before we go, any closing arguments? I'll take it. Well, not closing arguments. Anything you'd like to leave people with before they go? I'll hear what Mimi wants to contribute before her final one. So we'll hear from Mimi. Then after Mimi, Pani, if you're in a position, let's hear from you. Then Jennifer, and then David. So Mimi, please go ahead.
Can I be heard?
Yes, you can be heard now.
Yeah,
Sorry,
this is
I'm
fine.
stuck at this, so the thing is just messing me up. Anyway, yeah. So what I was saying is, what Jennifer mentioned is one of the reasons why the person I was talking about didn't do the SNIT pension, because when he went to register, he was warned that if he misses a payment, he'll be in trouble. So if you're doing business and you've not yet found your footing, I think you can go to SNIT and register as a self-employed person and be paying for yourself. As a self-employed person, they are not too hard on you. I the last time I was in an engagement with a SNIT person, they even mentioned that they allow you to pay 3 months, 6 months, or even 1 year. So you pay once for like the whole year. So they seem to be more flexible with self-employed people. So if your business is looking like some doomsday kind of business, then you probably can opt for that. And maybe when things are more stable, you can now do it the more formal way. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Charlie, there are some businesses that are doing so. Hey, Charlie, it's not easy. Anyway, interesting one. Okay, so let's hear the last thoughts on this. What you like people to go away remembering. Pani is not in a position to speak at this point, so we'll hear from wait, I said Jennifer. Yes, Jennifer, and then we'll come to David.
Okay. So as we are planning for retirement, we plan for other contingencies that can arise when we've retired, and that is you let's say a fire outbreak that can happen to your house, stuff that can happen. So insurance will be very important to look into as well for a comprehensive retirement plan. And health, now we know that health is a very notorious spender of money when you get to retirement. So are you going to look into private health insurance? Are you going to think that the money that you've accumulated will help you with many health issues that arise, or what? Just know what you want to do so that you take plans towards that as well, so that all of these sub inlets will also lead you to have a very fruitful retirement when you get there, and not just the thinking about the money. Yeah, thank you.
That's great. Broader way to think about life in general and protecting yourself. Thank you, Jennifer, for that. David, how about you? Closing thoughts?
So I'll say, as the great philosopher Notorious B.I.G. said, more money, more problems. So let's not put it off. Let's not put retirement off. Start as early as you can. Straight out of college, your first job, start putting stuff away. And second, please, your kids are not a retirement plan, especially for those of us who are not really, when you're in your heydays, you think life will never end. So you don't really pay attention to your kids. You're not, helping pay their school fees and all that. You ignore them. Once you get old, guess what? They could ignore you too. So your kids are not a retirement plan. Thank you.
In the wise words of the great philosopher. That was an interesting one. I did not see that coming. But yeah, good point there. Your kids are not a retirement plan. So please keep that in mind. I know some of us are young. We can't go and say that to our parents. We just hope that they've put in the necessary steps. But this is for us moving forward. Okay. All right. Mimi, any closing words before I take mine?
So, and something Jennifer said that I think is very important. So I mean, I've been working in the retirement industry for a bit, and I think one thing that does not allow people to achieve their retirement goal is not having an overall financial plan. So you are planning for retirement, you don't have an emergency fund. You are planning for retirement, you don't have an insurance. What happens? There's an emergency, and you are running to your, provident fund to fix your car tire or something, like that. So while we are talking about retirement planning, it's a good time to look at your whole financial plan and have a plan so that whatever goals you've been able to set for yourself, at least you are able to stick to it.
Always dipping your hand in that cookie jar, and you have a lot of those experiences to share. But maybe I'll take my final word. But if you can just think of some of the most memorable experiences since you've been in the industry for a while, and where you've had actual experiences with people who, one person on one hand planned well for their retirement and they are living comfortably, and someone who unfortunately did not do that and is suffering for it. So just think about it if you can think of any more. I know you've given some examples along the line, but if you have some most memorable ones, that would be great to share. For me, my last word is a few words. Time is your best friend. Remember the calculations or the numbers I mentioned earlier. If two people have a target of retiring at 60 with 1 million CDs in an investment, and they are both 25 years, and only one of them starts at age 25, that giving them 35 years to retire at a conservative rate of 15% per annum, they are looking at uh, monthly contributions of 89%, 89 CDs. The person who delays and waits 5 years later would have to do more than double that, and they would have to contribute 180 CDs a month. So time is your best friend. If you don't want to have to put in too much money, you would be better off starting early. And it goes down. It goes down. If someone who waits till they turn 40 and they have 20 years to retire will have to contribute 762 CDs a month to reach that same target. And even where someone with 10 years to time, the battle is for the Lord. But yeah, it's doable. 3,800 CDs a month. I know that money seems a lot. And someone with 5 years to retire, that's even 11,000 CDs. So it's better to just think about what can I do now, as little as possible now, to make sure that I'm setting myself up right. And just think about inflation. Increase your monthly contributions every year. You start with 89 CDs. Next year, do 95 CDs. Add another 10% the following year. Just keep increasing it by 10%, and it will help you bridge that, adjust for inflation over time. After all, chances are you'll be earning much more you'll be earning incremental income, so more income every few years. The last thing I want to say is the tax system is here for your benefit. There are many ways that you may feel cheated by politicians and the government and a lot of social structures. But one way that they've got your back, if they've not done anything at all for you, is their pensions regime, where you can put up to 35% of your income away without being taxed. That is free money. It's like someone, you owe someone and the person says, you know what, instead of paying me 1,000 cedis, just pay me maybe 500 cedis or just 600 cedis. You get a discount. Who doesn't like discounts? Who doesn't like sales? So if you if you want your piece of the national cake, go get this one. It's free and it's available to you. Use it to your benefit so that when you turn 60 or even want to retire earlier, you'll be in a much better shape. So yeah, that's it from me. Mimi, do you have any juicy stories to leave us with?
I have a few, so let me start with the sad one. So I think I've shared this here before about, how somebody called and, he had put in a withdrawal form and I think he was waiting for the money and all that. So I was in a hurry, went to account, went to find out what's happening here, just to check his statement, and it was 4,000 Ghana cedis. And I was like, what happened? What happened to this person? There are also instances where you find retirees actually call the pension company to advise us to save for our retirement because it's not going well. So, I mean, it's very interesting. And for my own family, one of the members of my family, she had monthly pensions of 600 Ghana cedis, and I think a lump sum of 14,000. So, I mean, if this person's husband is not in a good place or was not in a good place, I think she would have found herself wanting. And can I still be heard?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Okay. Okay, the good one. So this week I was talking to somebody, and the guy has money. He retired a year ago and he had some big money sitting there and hadn't even, asked too much about it. So we were just talking and he was telling me that, oh, he has bonds, he has investment here, he has investment there. And in fact, his bonds, the coupons is enough to take care of him. And I brought up emergencies. He said he doesn't even know what emergency he cannot, deal with. And this guy is somebody who knows his stuff. I spoke to him when he retired. He said he's not interested in doing any business, now going to put his money in any business at retirement or go and build any house. That, this is not the time for that. Fortunately for him, he may have had the opportunity to do that during his working life. So he's just balling. And every time I see his profile picture, he's with his wife in one place or the other. So it's nice to see the some people are enjoying during their retirement.
Ulumambugi reminds me of one of my clients who has made shorts his uniform after retirement. Very interested one there. Okay, all right, that's a great story. Jennifer also wants to share an experience.
I had an opportunity to talk to a woman who was a head teacher of an MA school. I was just talking to her, and she said she looked very young. Hashtag Gabriel Union at 60. So I didn't think she was 60 years old. I was trying to get her to open a mutual fund account, and she was like, "Oh, she's 60. She Bob Brad. That's what she said. She has lived life." So as we're trying to talk, and she made mention of the fact that her SNITs is just a little over 700 CDs, and I was like, okay, so what's was that what she expected? And she said she didn't really have an expectation when she was going in. She was a teacher, so she was working like that. Her husband is deceased, so it's just her and then her two kids. The last one is still in school, so out of that 700 CDs, she's taking care of the last one. Okay, and then the head teacher salary too is supporting, but I don't think it's anything to write home about. Yes. Now fast forward 2 months later, the I went to visit her and she was wearing black. And then I asked her, and she said her mom and then her mom's sister were going somewhere, and then they both died in a car crash. So now she has a funeral of her mother, and then because probably they will think she's well to do, by extension her mother's sister. And the woman was distraught. You could really see that she needed money. And then she even asked me, are you sure that later bank you don't give loans? I said, no, we don't give loans. But you see, this is somebody who has just gone on retirement, and you think that at least should have had a life planned out up to an extent. But an emergency just happened, and right now she's in need of money. So yeah, this is something you'd want to avoid. Thank you.
It's sad. It's sad. It's bad that we have to end on a sad note with that story. But it reminds me of a tweet. The person was saying that life is hard. You just work hard, but nothing is guaranteed. You still grind and you still not be rich. And Danielle drew my attention to this tweet. I think it was Danielle, right? Yes. And I responded that there is a formula, like there's a way to do it. Follow certain sound principles. And it's great that we are having these conversations so that we don't have to be in those tough spots when we retire. For David in a few months, and for the rest of us in a few decades, we don't have to get into those tight spots. So I'm really glad we all could join in this conversation to see the need for this conversation and why we should bother about it. And I hope it's encouraged you to book your seat in this conversation. Don't worry, seats don't run out, so you can still book later. But yes, come back here 7 p.m. next week, Thursday, and let's continue this conversation. We'll be talking about SNIT. That's tier 1 of the Ghanaian pension structure. And I'm sure David will be looking to draw some parallels to give context to those in the US to make it applicable to them too. So do join, and let's make sure that we are securing our future. So catch you there. But in the meantime, check us out on social media, Money Convos GH everywhere, and also on a podcast or YouTube. If you missed this or you want to hear it again, it's waiting for you to hear it again. So catch you next week then. Do take care. Oh, and shout outs to Paulina. Paulina was probably caught up in something else, but it's always nice to see her, even if it's at the end. It's nice to see Paulina. Anyway, do have a good weekend as it's coming up. So catch you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our thoughts. I hope you learned a thing or two and start practicing. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse, and Facebook. And subscribe to our YouTube and podcast. Do tell a friend about Money Convos so we all become wealthy together. Talk to you soon. Bye.